Welcome, witches.
I'm Jen.
I'm Candi.
And we're the Cornfield Coven.
So today, I wanted to go a little spooky, and we are going to hit up the Mineral Point vampire in Mineral Point, Wisconsin.
Woo.
So this one is, I don't know how to explain it. It's a lot of he said, she said. It really made me think of MTV's Teen Wolf. Not so much vampire or werewolves, but vampires, and how the officer was the one that saw it. Anyways, I'll get right into it, and then you can feel the vibes. So the tale starts off on a quiet night in Mineral Point, Wisconsin, in the dead of winter. The kind of night where it was so cold outside that the air clung to the silence. I love those nights.
I love the way you described that, but that just gave me shivers.
Right?
Like, it made me cold. I felt what you were saying.
My favorite is, we just had it the other night here.
Yes.
Is when it snows so much and it's still outside and it's like 11 o'clock at night, but when you look outside, because of all the white snow, it just
bright.
glows.
Yeah.
But you can hear everything.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay. So it was so cold that the air clung to the silence. No one was outside, and the only sound made was by the wind. Officer John Pepper was on duty that evening doing his routine patrol. It was February 1981, and the small mining town was sleeping, and all was quiet. But what Officer Pepper saw next would jolt him and the entire town, and would be thrown into a mystery that would remain unsolved for decades. So, I'll get to it. I'm already mentally jumping ahead, because I had a conversation with a friend the other night about this, because I haven't been able to really stop thinking about it. And I scripted this a while ago, and it's like every 20 some odd years this comes about, and we're coming up on that again.
Ooh.
So I was just like, I really want to go to Mineral Point. Like, anyways. But so I'm jumping ahead. So let me go back.
Where is Mineral Point
It's about
in the mitten
30
of Wisconsin?
35 minutes away from here.
Oh, okay. So in southeast Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Okay.
So as
southwest Wisconsin.
Yeah.
I don't know my directions. Sorry.
I'll get confused. I'm still West Coast, so it's like,
yeah, I'll stop annoying you now.
You're
Please
fine.
proceed.
Now we'll look up the map in a minute. Okay, so it's been unsolved forever. As he turned the corner near the Old Graceland Cemetery. Now, Old Graceland Cemetery has been linked to many other mysterious things. And that's another episode I'll probably jump into. But the vampire, I just went on to this lore, because once you get here, you'll understand.
Yeah.
So as he turned the corner, the Old Graceland Cemetery, he noticed movement. A shadow running by. And no, it wasn't Edward from Twilight, because this one didn't glitter and
He didn't
sparkle.
sparkle.
He thought it was just an animal that was startled by his patrol lights. Maybe a deer. But the figure stood up, and it was tall, pale, and human-shaped. I can't do the Twilight voice. Oh, man. But, so Officer Pepper slowed down, narrowing his eyes to get a better view. The figure turned his head towards the car. It was very pale, almost ghostly white, with deep, sunken eyes that seemed to reflect no light at all. It was dressed in all dark clothing and a cape-like jacket.
I think we should bring back capes.
I think so, too. I wore one to prom.
Capes and fedoras. Let's do it.
Little Peaky Blinders, like, oh. So, before Officer Pepper could react, because it all happened so fast, the figure bolted. not just ran, but moved so fast he glided across the snow. And all I keep thinking about is the Volturi from Twilight.
Yeah.
The last one where they glide. And I just, anyways. Too many Twilight references. Okay. Anyways.
Okay, let's throw in a supernatural one.
Oh, we're going to have to.
These aren't vampires. These are douchebags.
Officer Pepper slammed the patrol car in park and got out. Okay, first off, I wouldn't have gotten out. I would have locked the doors and went, yelling for the man to stop. The man in black did not stop and kept running through the cemetery gates, his footsteps making no sound on the frozen ground. Officer Pepper followed him with his flashlight on the man the whole time. But when the entrance of the cemetery, the man was gone. So basically, once he went through the gates of the cemetery, he vanished.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask was, can he leave the cemetery? Because that seems sus.
He can, but it seems like in all of these stories, it's just kind of right out in like a proximity of the cemetery, like the first few homes right outside the cemetery. It says, the man vanished into thin air. Officer Pepper radioed in the encounter. His voice was shaky, but controlled. He described the figure, tall, dark clothes, and like almost not human speed. When dispatch asked for clarification, Pepper hesitated, then said something no officer in their right mind would say. It looked like a vampire.
Oh my gosh, what year was this? Sorry.
This was... I have it written down. 1981.
Okay.
1981.
So not like crazy old timey.
No. So in a small town, stuff like this word spreads quickly. Neighbor told neighbor, family told family, and people were gathering at the market and talking about it. The vampire in Mineral Point. Word spread quickly. Some laughed it off, others weren't sure. The area had a long history of eerie folklore. Remember that. Tales passed down from the early settlers in the 1800s. Back then, strange lights, ghostly apparitions, and creatures lurking in the old mines were common stories.
What kind of creatures? Do we got some cryptids?
We kind of do. So, did you ever watch Sabrina the Teenage Witch, the newer ones, not the old ones?
The dark ones?
Yes.
Yes.
So you know how the mines in that
were
the gates of hell.
Yep.
But so that's what I was envisioning in this.
Oh, okay.
And it kind of sounds like that. So, let's see. Creatures were lurking in the old mine were common stories. The kind told to children to keep them from wandering too far away at night and to keep them out of the mines. But this was different. This was an experienced police officer. Someone people trusted, not an overactive imagination. Over the next few days, Officer Pepper couldn't shake the image in his mind, playing the encounter over and over. The pale face, the speed, the sunken eyes, and the dark clothes. He went back to the cemetery several times, hoping to find some sort of clue, but always left with nothing, as if the ground itself had swallowed any evidence. Then, a few days later, it happened again. Late one night, a call came into the police station from a woman who lived at the edge of town. A tall, dark-clothed man standing outside her window. Tall, pale, with glowing red eyes. But the time officers had arrived, the man was gone. The woman insisted she had not been daydreaming or night dreaming, and the man had been watching her until she had screamed. It totally got me back to a Twilight reference. Edward watching Bella sleep moment. That lady did it correctly. She screamed. She didn't fall in love with the vampire. She screamed. So once she screamed, he disappeared. After that, a few more calls like that came in. See, and I'm wondering now if people are just like, I want to be seen, so I'm going to say I saw a vampire. Another call came in from a man who said he saw the tall man standing in the cemetery entrance, just staring at him. Then calls came in from residences that were strange marks outside their homes, almost like drag marks. Now the police department was fielding calls nightly. Officer Pepper was reluctant to talk to the press, but rumors were spreading quickly. A vampire had taken hold, and the newspapers were running with it. They were covering stories first as a curiosity and then as a local legend. For weeks, the people of Mineral Point lived in a quiet fear. Doors were locked earlier than usual, curtains were drawn tight, and parents warned their kids to not play after dusk outside. It was as if the town had stepped back into the old superstitions from their ancestors. But behind the hysteria, there was something strange. Several residents all saw the same thing. A tall man, darkly dressed, pale, and moved extremely fast. None of the people had spoke to each other before reporting it, and none of them had reason to lie. But all of their stories aligned perfectly. When journalists started doing some digging, they turned up something unexpected. Graceland Cemetery, where the first encounter happened, had a reputation for years for people whispered it was haunted. In the 1960s, people reported hearing voices and seeing glowing lights and sometimes a figure. The cemetery was really old, dated back to the 1800s, when the first settlers came over from Europe, arrived in Mineral Point. They were called Cornish miners. They brought their folklore with them, the knockers.
What
Spirits.
So it's called Mineral Point and Cornish miners, and we're talking about mines. Was this a big mining town?
It is.
What was the mineral that they mined? Was it coal?
I think it was. I don't know. I should have looked that up.
That's okay.
I'm slacking. I just know
I
it
was
was
just
a mineral in. So
it was a mining community.
Yes, and I'm also doing a story on the Walker House in Mineral Point, and Mary Jane Twilliger, one of the witches. She's a Mineral Point also.
Oh, okay.
So Mineral Point.
Sounds like we gotta go there.
That's what I was thinking.
Oh.
I think my daughter played soccer there. I should have known about this back then. So they brought over the knockers, spirits that haunted the mines, and of creatures of men who drained the life out of them while they sleep.
That sounds like a vampire.
When Officer Pepper made his first report, the elders in the community remembered these stories. This was not the first time something strange walked those grounds. One old miner said, "We used to see things down in the shafts, eyes watching from the dark, cold air where there shouldn't be. If you stayed down in the mines too long, you would feel like something was feeding off of you." Whether he was speaking metaphorically or not, nobody could tell, and it left an eerie feeling. But the sentiment echoed what many in the Mineral Point area were feeling, that something ancient had been disturbed. Officer Pepper had happened to cross whatever it was, and it was in his path. By March, the story had gained enough traction nearby towns started sending curious visitors and paranormal enthusiasts. People camped by the cemetery hoping to see the vampire. Would you? I mean, I kind of think I would. But then again, I'd be like, I'll wait to see if somebody else sees it first.
I'd be wearing garlic.
Oh my god. Garlic, holy water, silver, anything.
Yeah, I mean, where are the things? Okay, and the officer who saw the vampire first, his name is Officer Pepper.
Yeah.
Was he ever promoted to sergeant?
All I can think is, does he drink Dr. Pepper? Local bars were filled with people talking about the Mineral Point monster and wanting to learn as much as they could about it. You know, as everyone flocks to the bars in Resurrection Mary, they all go to the bar to talk about it.
Yeah, it's the Midwest. That's where you go for your information. That's where it's reliable.
Oh, Officer Pepper was once again thrust into the spotlight. He manned his account of the incident and told people about it. "I saw what I saw," the Officer Pepper would tell people. "I don't care what anyone calls it." But his colleagues were I'm not quite sure what to believe. Some thought he had saw a prankster. Others quietly said that his story did not sound like a lie and that they believed him. The town sheriff ordered additional patrol cars to maintain around the cemetery. For a while, reports stopped. It seemed like the visitor had moved on or gone back to wherever it came from. But just as everything had calmed down, something reignited the fear. It was April now, and two young men were walking home from a bar late at night. As they passed by the cemetery, they heard footsteps behind them and turned around and saw a tall, pale man wearing black. The two men froze in fear. The tall, dark man was just standing there, staring at them, and then darted towards them. The two men turned and ran towards oncoming cars for help, terrified and screaming, "Please help me, please help me." And when they turned around, the tall, dark figure was gone. When police investigated, they found no tracks or evidence of anyone hiding. The temp was freezing, so any evidence in the snow would have shown. There was nothing. It was like the creature just appeared and disappeared at will. Locals started saying maybe it was not a man at all. Maybe it was something supernatural, something that could have been between worlds, feeding off fear itself. By now, the Mineral Point vampire had spread and was now a Wisconsin paranormal lore. It was mentioned in TV shows, paranormal books, and radio. Officer Pepper eventually retired, but never changed his story. Even upon death, he maintained what he saw that night was no human being. Even today, locals speak about it in hushed tones. Teenagers dare each other to visit the cemetery at night. Paranormal investigators periodically come with cameras in hand, scanning for cold spots and anything unusual.
I believe Officer Pepper. He saw something. But I'm wondering what makes it a vampire. Maybe it's just its appearance. You know, it doesn't appear like a ghost or an apparition. It looks like Dracula.
Well, and it's probably what we are taught to believe, like in books and stuff.
Okay.
It says sometimes a resident will make a report of something odd in the cemetery. But when the wind blows through the cemetery on a cold evening, some still feel like something is watching them and waiting. In the weeks that followed the Mineral Point, it all tried to return to normal. Frost began to melt, and with spring, the long season of fear had finally ended. But for Officer John Pepper, the memory of that pale face lingered. Each time he passed the cemetery gate, he felt a chill that hit to his core. He told himself it was over, and whatever he had seen was gone. And yet some nights when the wind picked up, he swore he could hear footsteps crunching behind him, stopping when he turned around. The townspeople didn't talk about it much anymore unless it was in private. Parents would use it to tell their kids to keep them in their beds at night. Old miners would talk about it in the bars and swap old stories. A pale figure down in the mine that would drain warmth from the air and light from the lanterns. They said it moved faster than any man and left no trace of being there, as if it were part of the cold itself.
As if it were part of the cold itself. I like that. Yeah. Fancy.
Local historians started digging into cemeteries dated back to 1830. The old graves belonged to immigrants who came over from Cornwall, Ireland, and Eastern Europe. Among those names were Drago, Marovich, and Laszlo. These stood out and had attachments to vampire folklore.
That's some Game of Thrones shit,
right?
What those names are.
They found an old newspaper with an article from 1893 about an excavation of a miner's body after several townfolk dying from severe anemia. They excavated this man's body only to find the body looking fresh with little decay. But they put a stake through his heart to help calm the fear of the townsfolk when they thought it was a vampire. And it helped the hysteria of that people and their fears. Some people in 1981 believe that this is all a buried legend, perhaps something that had been disturbed when the ground thawed an excavation of the new cemetery the year before. So did they disturb something and wake it up?
Ghosts don't like house remodels.
Nope.
And if a vampire lives in his coffin and you disturbed it, then you did a house remodel on him.
Yeah, I would say, or those mines. That's
Yeah.
Whatever the cause, locals whispered that the thing Officer Pepper saw wasn't new. It was awakened again.
Ooh.
Investigators from Madison and Chicago soon arrived. Paranormal researchers soon arrived and set up night cameras and motion cameras to catch anything. They camped in the hopes of seeing something. Most recorded satire and sounds of the mind and hoping to find something. One team claimed to catch something. A hooded man running across the cemetery. Personally, when I looked at pictures, it looks like someone dressed as a ghost and just running through the cemetery. Like they were trying to make it look real type of a thing.
Oh.
And it's really just a joke. But he was tall, dark cloak, and said to move too fast for the camera in a clear shot. But then again, back then, digital cameras, film cameras, they didn't have the technology we have today. So anything moving, and if it's not in sport mode or continuous moving form, anyways, whatever that's called, it'll come across blurry. So heck yeah, it's gonna look. Around this time, a teenager, Matt Hollis, reported a sighting that would deepen the mystery. Driving home from watching a movie at the local theater with some friends, when they passed the cemetery, he saw what he described as a tall, dark figure standing on top of the mausoleum. At first, they thought it was just a prank, a statue, a mannequin. But then it moved, bent low like it was going to leap. It jumped down from the mausoleum with silence, looked at them with red eyes, and ran into the fog and ran away from them. The boys drove off screaming, too scared to look back. Later, when asked to describe what they saw, they all described the same thing exactly. They hadn't been drinking, and their fears seemed genuine. Police searched the area again, but found nothing. No props, no statues, no cloaks, no footsteps. No prints in the snow of any kind, just cold mist lurking through the tombstones. The stories hit headlines once more, and tourists started arriving on the weekends in hopes of seeing the Mineral Point vampire and fill their curiosity. Shops sold merch, t-shirts, mugs, artwork of the vampire, and some of the
I'm buying a keychain when we go. You know I am.
The t-shirts are amazing. You have to Google. Halloween costumes, spooky fun. But for others who lived in the cemetery, it was different. The nights felt colder, eerier, and off even though it was summer. Officer Pepper tried ignoring the attention it was getting again, refused interviews, and stopped discussing the incident publicly. But in private, he kept notes, sketches of what he had seen, and local weather patterns. Years passed, and still the story refused to die. In 1993, another officer, Jack O'Malley, said he saw a man dressed in black leap over a 6-foot fence with ease and run into the woods. He chased the man but never caught him. He said it moved like no human, and once again, no tracks, no evidence, and no explanation. Local historians, this is where I was like, yes. Local historians started researching patterns. Always winter, always near the cemetery, always a pale man dressed in black. Some even proposed a scientific application of fog and snow around the tombstone. Others said it was a massive hysteria. The town was feeding off its own legend, and others believed it was something older than the town. Native indigenous legend told a tale of dark shadow drinkers, spirits that moved in cold months and fed on breath rather than blood. Whether coincidence or legend, it was uncanny how alike they were. In the late 1990s, the Mineral Point vampire was a fixture of Wisconsin folklore. Ghost tours stopped at Graceland Cemetery, and late-night radio debated if it was a cryptid, spirit, or something else. But beneath the theatrics, one detail remained consistent. Whatever it was beneath the ground had never truly left. Then came the chilling sound of an original sighting in 2008. A man was walking his dog by the cemetery, and a tall, dark figure was crouched beside a tombstone. At first, the man walking the dog thought it was someone mourning their loved one, and then the figure turned toward him and rose. Tall, dark robe, red eyes. The man's dog started barking and whimpering. The man froze in fear, but the tall, dark figure started gliding back into the fog and woods and disappear. When police arrived minutes later, the snow and area were once again undisturbed. After time, stories once again went hush and almost forgotten. It was like the legend itself, followed a rhythm, only returning when everyone has almost forgotten. To this day, people say when they visit Graceland Cemetery at night, they say the cemetery feels alive, the air thickens, the temperatures drop, and even the bravest claim they feel eyes watching them. Some bring cameras, others prayers, but all leave with the same unease feeling that the man in black is still there waiting in the fog, watching from the shadows of a forgotten grave. The legend of the Mineral Point vampire refuses to fade away. To those who grew up in Mineral Point, the vampire was more than a story. It was a shadow cast across generations. Children of the 80s grew up into adults who remembered the fear of their parents' eyes, the way the streets emptied at sundown, the way the police cars lingered longer near the cemetery gates. In the 2000s, the legend sparked interest in ghost hunters. They brought equipment and filmed episodes. Recently, historians have been doing more research. They put together maybe the so-called vampire wasn't a creature of typical sense. Remnants of energy tied to the old mining tunnels under the town. The tunnels have been closed off for years, are shown on maps running right under Graceland Cemetery. Some believe the constant digging and blasting disturbs something ancient buried in those hills. There were records of miners dying mysteriously in those hills, their bodies pale and bloodless. Their deaths blamed on gas leaks and exhaustion, but the pattern was unsettling. In 2010, a group of urban explorers managed to get into one of the mines. They brought cameras. For the first hour, everything was uneventful. Then, as they moved deeper into the mine, the air temperature dropped sharply. Their lights flickered. Later on, upon looking at their footage, later recovered, one of the explorers can be heard asking, "Do you hear that?" Followed by faint tapping sounds, like metal striking stone, echoing from the darkness ahead. Moments later, one of their flashlights caught something. Ahead, a pair of eyes looking at them from down in the tunnel. Then their feeds cut out to static.
Ooh.
When they had emerged, shaken and rattled, they swore they saw a tall figure watching them from the shadows. The video went viral online and reignited the interest of the Mineral Point vampire. Once again, Mineral Point and destination of paranormal interest, YouTubers, podcasters, and TV shows all wanted to catch a glimpse, but locals were not liking it. Vandals were destroying the cemetery at night, destroying tombstones, and recording cheap stunts. The town council banned night visiting, but even with its people still stuck on the cemetery property. For many, the Mineral Point vampire has transcended folklore and became a reflection of fear itself. A reminder, even in a world mapped and measured by science, there are still corners where the unknown lingers. It's not about believing in vampires, it's about knowing something is out there that doesn't belong in the world we believe in. Even now, visitors claim to see stuff when visiting the cemetery. The temperature changes, the change to see, you can see your breath. Some even claim to see a tall man in black standing in the distance, still watching and stuck in time. He never approaches, he never runs, he just watches. And maybe that's what keeps the legend alive. The unanswered question, the feeling that truth lies just out of reach. So I like to believe that he's never bit anybody. So
he's creepy.
Is he a
he's
dementor?
Watching. Like, he doesn't, I don't like to be stared at creepily, especially in cemeteries, but he's never really hurt anybody as far as we can see.
He wants their fear, their energy. It's like, do they take...
And, if that doesn't cost me anything, I mean, don't take my life force.
So...
But, and also, that was beautifully, written. That was poetic as shit and stuff.
So I got a lot of it off of YouTube, too. There's some great YouTube videos on that. But, to lighten it up, fun fact. Do you know that Betty White's husband was from Mineral Point, Wisconsin?
I did not.
And Alan Ludden passed away in 1981, and he was born and buried in Mineral Point.
In 1981?
In 1980.
Which is the first sighting.
Is he the
vampire?
But do you know when Betty White died? She paid a good penny. It said that she was cremated, and her final resting place will never be revealed to the public. Is she buried in Mineral Point, Wisconsin, with her husband?
Is there going to be 2 vampires, and one of them's a Betty White vampire?
I would be so excited if Betty White.
That would be awesome.
I mean, wow. But yeah, so as I was reading it, all of a sudden it was like, fun fact, like on my laptop, it was like, fun fact, did you know Betty White's from, or her husband's from, and I'm like, Betty White a vampire? Oh my God. But so anyways, that was just a little lore into vampires. It's neat to hear it wasn't a blood-sucking vampire. It was an energy life
energy
force
vampire.
But it's just, I don't know, it was something different, so.
That was so fun. I loved that.
So there was
Thank
a lore.
Thank you for sharing it.
So Mineral Point, we gotta go there. There's witches, vampires, Betty White. So, you know, we're not supposed to, her husband's there, but anyways, I
don't know, maybe you're sick on Saturday. We gotta take a little road trip.
Mineral Point, here I come. Thank you all for listening. Don't forget to check out our website, cornfieldcoven.podbean.com.
You got it.
Oh, it's like a mouthful for me. Don't forget to like, click, and share our social media to let other people. If you like us, share it with your friends. Tell them to listen to us. And don't forget we have merch. Check that out too. And
case suggestions.
Yes.
Cornfield Coven Midwest Podcast @gmail.com. Shoot them on over.
If you know of another vampire out there in the Midwest, let me know about it. I would like to continue on to see if they're all soul energy sucking, or maybe there's a...
Candy's just gonna start collecting Midwest vampires.
I am from the Pacific Northwest, and I was where Twilight was filmed, and I fell down that freaking rabbit hole. So now I'm like fascinated with, but I'm also a child of the 80s. So the Lost Boys.
The Lost Boys.
So anyways, but all right. Well, thank you for listening.
Thanks, guys. Bye, witches.